Hello everyone, I'm Yumu from Susan's family. Today, I'm sharing with you a pillow named So Confusing from our Funky Chickie collection. For the charts of this project and crocheting guidance, please view our website, en.susudiy.com. This pillow is made up of the body, the limbs, the facial features, the hat, the tail and the wooden grain. Let's make the body first. We'll start with the magic ring and crochet in joined rounds counterclockwise. As you work, stuff the pillow with filling cotton. Before we begin, let's take a look at the chart. In the chart, our ND plus number indicates the round number. The stitch instruction column tells the stitches needed for the current round, and the increases or decreases to make. The total stitches column shows the total number of stitches after completing all stitches in that round. The techniques you need are X for single crochet, V for SC2 in 1, A for SC2 tog, chain, and slip stitch. I'll show you in detail. Take the corresponding yarn. We use Chenille yarn or Handcrafted number 2 knit thread for this project. When we're working with Chenille yarn, we use a single strand. For the Handcrafted number 2 knit thread, we combine 2 strands to work as one. You can pull the ends from both the center and the outside of the skein. I'll work on the Chenille yarn in this video to make it easier to watch. Colors for the sample are random. For specific yarn details, color combinations, and hook sizes, please check the detail page and pattern chart of this project. Mr. in the chart means to start with a magic ring. Let's make an adjustable magic ring together. Pick up the yarn with your right hand. Wrap it around your left little finger once. Place it between the middle finger and index finger. Pinch the tail with your thumb and middle finger. Pick up the hook with your right hand and place it below the yarn. Wrap the yarn counterclockwise once to form a loop on the hook. Pinch the overlap of the loop with your left thumb and middle finger. Make the loop bigger here. Put the hook on the left of the yarn. Yarn over. Draw the yarn through. Continue pinching the loop. Keep the size consistent. And there you have an adjustable magic ring. Now, let's crochet round 1. Here's something you should know. Due to the uniqueness of the yarn, you might get a bit tired while crocheting. When that happens, you can change your way of holding hook. Here we have 2 of them. The first one is pen holding style. For the second one, place your hand above the hook and hold the hook gently. Now let's start crocheting. Round 1 says 8x. The number before the X indicates the number of single crochets. Here, you need to work 8 single crochets into the ring. Chain 1 as the beginning chain of single crochet. Yarn over. Draw the yarn through. And there, you've completed 1 chain. This beginning chain isn't shown in the chart. Actually, when crocheting in joined rounds, we always begin a round with the beginning chain. A beginning chain of single crochet doesn't count as 1 stitch. For the first single crochet, insert the magic ring. Yarn over and draw the yarn through. Yarn over again, and draw through all the loops on the hook. There, 1 single crochet is complete. The braid on the upper right is its stitch. 1 stitch represents 1 stitch crocheted. This is the first stitch of this round. Place a stitch marker on it. If you don't have stitch markers, you may use safety pins or paper clips instead. Continue with the second stitch. Insert the hook. Yarn over and draw the yarn through. For round 1, work the stitches slightly loosely. Yarn over and draw through once more. Single crochet completed. Continue to work the remaining 6 single crochets. After finishing, mark the last single crochet. And close the magic ring. Pull tight directly. To close the center of the fabric. The ring is closed. Slip stitch into the marked stitch, which is the first stitch of this round. Insert the hook. Draw the yarn through. And through the loop on the hook. Slip stitch completed. The joining slip stitch does not count as one stitch. Tighten it up. The slip stitch isn't shown in the chart. When crocheting in joined rounds, we always finish a round with a slip stitch. And tighten up. And that completes round 1. Place a stitch marker in any spot on the side facing you. This marked side is the right side of the fabric, the other side is the wrong side. Thread the starting tail onto a needle. Secure the tail with a few stitches on the wrong side. To prevent the loops from unraveling. Trim any excess. Round 1 is done. Now, let's make round 2. RND2 says 8V. The number before the V indicates the number of SC2 in 1 to work in a row. So here, you'll work 8 SC2 in 1 in a row. Chain 1 as the beginning chain. Remember, when working in joined rounds, we always begin a round with a beginning chain. I'll leave out this cliché from here on. In the first single crochet of the previous round, work 1 SC2 in 1, meaning in the marked spot. Work 2 single crochets. First single crochet. For this kind of yarn, be mindful not to crochet too loosely, or you may end up with a pillow with weird size. Second single crochet. SC2 in 1 completed. Don't forget to mark the first stitch. Now, work another SC2 in 1 in the next stitch. You'll need to work a total of 8 SC2 in 1 for this round. Finish the remaining 6 ones. After the last SC2 in 1, don't forget to mark the last stitch. Check the stitch count now. The total stitches for each round are noted in the chart. I'll leave out this cliché from here on. Now, slip stitch into the first stitch. Insert the hook. Draw the yarn through and through all loops on the hook. Slip stitch complete. Again. Always finish a round with a slip stitch into the first stitch and tighten up. Round 2 is now finished. Continue with round 3. RND3 says XV times 8. The parentheses indicate a group of stitches. Times 8 means to repeat the group 8 times. Start with 1 single crochet. For every following round, place stitch markers on the first and last stitches. I won't remind you again after this. Now, one more SC2 in 1. A group of XV is complete. Let's do this again. First, make 1 single crochet, followed by 1 SC2 in 1. That's the second group. For this round, repeat the group of XV 8 times in total. The remaining 6 groups will all be worked as 1 single crochet, followed by 1 SC2 in 1. Now slip stitch into the first stitch. Round 3 is now complete. For round 4 to 12, the stitch techniques have been shown in detail before. The stitch instruction column tells the similar information as before. Just follow the chart and work the corresponding stitches. The word evenly means to work 1 stitch for each stitch. In that way, the fabric curls naturally. Turn the right side out once done. Let's take a look. Each raised texture on the right side indicates a round. Don't forget the beginning chains and slip stitches as you go. Moving forward, use the technique we've shown to finish this section according to the chart. Now, crochet round 13. Follow the chart to finish the first 4 groups first. After that, work the 6 single crochets within the parentheses. Then, 1 SC2 tog. Firstly, 1 unclosed single crochet for the next 2 stitches each. Insert the hook. Draw the yarn through. The first one is done. Move on to the second stitch. Insert the next stitch. Insert the next stitch. Yarn over again, and draw through all loops. 1 SC2 tog completed. Now, 6 single crochets according to the chart. Do not work into the stitch already worked by the SC2 tog. Continue with 1 more SC2 tog. Firstly, 2 unclosed single crochets. And yarn over and draw through. SC2 tog completed. Continue following the chart to complete the remaining section. And finish with a slip stitch. Round 13 is now completed. For the rest of body, continue working in joined rounds. Just follow the chart as you go. If you meet the yarn end while crocheting, just join a new one. Let me show you how. Here, I'll join the yarn while working 1 single crochet. Firstly, work 1 unclosed single crochet. Then, take up the new yarn. Draw through. Adjust it slightly. 1 single crochet and the joining are done in the same time. Weave in the tail later. That's how you join the yarn. If you meet a knot in the skein, simply cut the knot and join the yarn like this. You also need to stuff the pillow as you go. Stuff the protruding bottom first after round 32. Fluff up the filling cottons before you do. The filling should be firm and even, but not too full or hard. Let's keep the body soft. When you have a few rounds remaining before end, stuff the remaining part. And then keep stuffing as you crochet the remaining rounds. That's how you stuff the pillow. Continue to work on the body. After the last round, fasten off. Here I'll work on this sample. Enlarge the loop and leave a tail about 15 centimeters before cutting. Thread the needle. Pass through the front loops of each stitch in the last round. You may gently pull to tighten as you go. And close the fabric. Secure the tail once on the left. Insert the center of the closing round and exit at any spot. Gently pull to tighten and press the closing round flat. Hide the tail inside the fabric by passing through several times. Trim the excess. The fabric is closed. The body is also done. Next, let's work on the limbs. Let's look at the finished project. The limbs are divided into wings and legs. Start by the wings first. There are 2 of them. Both are started with a chain ring and crocheted in joined rounds. Once done, sew them onto the corresponding position of the body. The new stitch here is the F for double crochet. Let's do this together. 4ch in the chart, indicating we'll start crocheting by a foundation chain of 4 chains. Hang the yarn onto your left hand and hold the hook with your right hand. Place the hook under the yarn. Wrap the yarn counterclockwise. Pinch the overlap of the loop with your left thumb and middle finger. Then place the hook on the left side of the yarn. Wrap the yarn counterclockwise and draw the yarn through from the loop. Slightly tighten. This slip knot does not count as a stitch. Adjust the size of the loop on the hook. Then make 4 chains. After the first one, mark the strand on the left. A braid here indicates 1 stitch. Continue crocheting. Mark the strand on the left side of the 3rd chain. Now the chain ring is complete. Second from hook, here means we start crocheting from the 2nd stitch from the hook. Count back from the hook side. 1, 2. This is the 2nd stitch from the hook, and where you marked. Start from this stitch. Into the following back loops, make 1 SC2 in 1. And 1 double crochet. Yarn over once. Insert the back loop of the next chain. And draw the yarn through. Yarn over again, and draw through the first 2 loops. Yarn over and draw through all loops in once. 1 double crochet completed. For the last chain, into the marked spot, make 9 double crochets. Start with the first one. Yarn over. Insert the hook. Draw the yarn through. Yarn over and draw through the first 2 loops on the hook. Repeat this process twice. The first double crochet is done. Continue to work the remaining 8 ones in the same spot. Let's take a look. On the other side of the chain, there are 2 strands left. You'll be crocheting into 2 strands like this from now on. Rotate the fabric clockwise by half a turn. Begin from the remaining strands of the second chain. Make 1 double crochet for each chain. Don't work into the marked spot on the right. Weave in the tail as you go. For the marked spot on the left, work 1 single crochet. You can see that stitches from both sides are worked into the same spots. Finish by slip stitch into the beginning stitch. And fasten off the yarn. Secure with 1 chain. Enlarge the loop. Leave a 20 cm tail and cut the yarn. Pull tight. Remove the stitch marker. Trim the excess of the starting tail. We consider the side facing us, with the braid-like texture on the edge as the right side of fabric. Mark it if you wish. So 1 wing is completed. Crochet the other one in the same way. Now let's sew them on. Thread the reserved tail onto the sewing needle. Just a little bit will do. Then take up the body. Consider the protruding bottom of the body as the back. Mark the centered positions on 2 flanks of round 32 on the body. Double check the positions. Fold the wing along the foundation chain with its right side facing up. Sew the last stitch to the marked position. Tighten as much as possible to make the wing stand upright. Secure the tail with a knot and weave in the excess. And one wing is sewed on. You can also shape the wing as you like. For the other wing, place it symmetrically on the opposite side. Secure it in the same way. It won't be difficult for you. That concludes the wings. Next, we'll work on the legs. Take a look at the finished project. There are 2 legs. Both are started by a foundation chain and crocheted counterclockwise in joined rounds. Stuff the leg as you crochet. Once done, sew them onto the corresponding position on the body. A new stitch technique here are the W for SC 3-in-1, T for half double crochet and TA for HDC 2 tog. I'll show you in detail. Chain 8 to start. I'm using cotton yarn of random colors here, but you should use the corresponding size of hook. Then, start from the second chain from the hook. Pick up the back loop of it and make 1 SC 2-in-1. If you can see the stitches clearly here, you don't need to mark the first one. Number 5 single crochets. One SC 3-in-1 into the last chain. That is 3 single crochets in the same spot. The SC 3-in-1 is now completed. Continue to work on the other side of the chains. Pick up the remaining 2 strands of the chains to make 6 single crochets evenly. Weave in the tail as you go. And slip stitch in the starting single crochet. Trim any excess from the foundation chain. Round 1 is done. Consider the side with the clearer texture as the right side. For the following round 2 to 4, simply crochet in joined rounds according to the chart. Don't forget the beginning chains and slip stitches. The sample is done with round 4. Move on to round 5. Don't forget to turn the right side of fabric out. Start with 5 single crochets. And 1 half double crochet. Yarn over once. Insert the hook. Draw the yarn through. Yarn over again, and draw through all loops on the hook. 1 half double crochet completed. Next, work 1 HDC2 tog. First, make 2 unclosed half double crochets. Yarn over again. Insert the hook. Draw the yarn through. The first unclosed half double crochet is done. Continue with the second one. Yarn over once. Insert the hook into the next stitch. Draw the yarn through. Second half double crochet completed. Yarn over one last time and draw through all loops. 1 HDC2 tog is finished. Now work another HDC2 tog. Yarn over once. Insert the hook. Draw the yarn through. Yarn over again and draw through the loops on the hook. 1 half double crochet completed. Continue with 1 HDC2 tog. First, work 2 unclosed half double crochets. Finally, yarn over and draw through all loops on the hook. 1 HDC2 tog is finished. Finish the round according to the chart. Finish with a slip stitch. Round 5 is completed. Move on to rounds 6 and 7. Finish them according to the chart. Stuff a little after you're done. Use a scissors as needed. No more stuffing required for the following crochet. Proceed with round 8. Chain 3 as the beginning chain of double crochet. This counts as 1 double crochet and matches the single crochet in the entry point of slip stitch below. Now, start from the next stitch. Work double crochets evenly. Do not work into the entry point of the beginning chain. Now, pick up the 2 strands on top of the beginning chain. To make an ending slip stitch. Round 8 is completed. Continue with round 9. Chain 3 as the beginning chain. This matches the beginning chain below. Then, work 1 double crochet into each of the following stitches. Do not miss the next stitch, which is slightly out of shape. Finally, pick up 2 strands on top of the beginning chain and slip stitch. Round 9 is completed. For the following rounds, crochet just like round 9. After the last round, leave a 20 cm tail before cutting the yarn. As you can see, this is a finished leg. Just crochet the other one in the same way. Now, I'll show you how to sew on the legs with this sample. Thread the needle with the reserved tail. Locate round 7 in front of the body. Position the legs 7 centimeters apart from each other. Mark the corresponding positions symmetrically on both sides. Once you're satisfied with the placement, sew the last round of the leg to the marked position. While sewing, ensure the toe point forward. You can also rearrange the legs if you like. There's no specific requirement for the sewing method, just make sure it's securely attached. Knot and weave int the tail when you're done. Sew the other leg on symmetrically. It won't be difficult for you. That concludes the limbs. Next, let's work on the facial features. Let's take a look at the finished project. We'll have the beak, the eyes and blushes. The beak comes first. We will start it by a foundation chain and work back and forth. After that, sew it onto the front of the body, at the center dent on round 49 to 50. You can mark the dent first. The new stitch here is the AV for TR 2-in-1. I'll show you in detail. Chain 10 to start. And in the second chain from the hook, work 1 single crochet. In the next chain, work 1 half double crochet and 1 double crochet. In the next chain, work 1 TR 2-in-1. That means crocheting 2 treble crochets in the same spot. For the first one, yarn over twice. Insert the hook. Draw the yarn through. Yarn over and draw through the first 2 loops. Repeat this process 3 times. One treble crochet completed. Continue with the second one. Yarn over twice. Insert the hook. Draw the yarn through. Yarn over and draw through the first 2 loops. Repeat this process 3 times. The second treble crochet is done. And the TR 2-in-1 is also done. Now, in the next chain, work 1 double crochet and 1/2 double crochet. In the next chain, slip stitch. Slightly tighten. Continue crocheting according to the chart. After the last single crochet, leave a 30 cm tail and fasten off. The beak is crocheted. Consider the side with clearer texture as the right side. Now sew the beak on. Thread the tail onto the needle. Place the beak with its wrong side facing out. And connect its two ends. Arrange it on the right of the marked position. The position here is random on the sample. You should check the chart for actual detail. Secure with 1 stitch on the first single crochet. And slightly tighten. Then pick up the chains and sew the beak to the body. Firstly, sew the corners on both sides. Keep the sewing position centered. And sew along the foundation chain. As you sew, shape the beak as needed. Try to make it curve natural. Once done, knot and weave in the ends. Do the same for the starting tail. And there, the beak is sewn on nicely. Now, let's move on to the eyes. Here's the finished project. An eye consists of a base and an eyeball. We'll crochet the bases. Then put on the eyeballs. And finally, glue the eyes to the body. I'll show you in detail. For the base, we will start with a magic ring. and work in joined rounds counterclockwise. The technique is similar to the first few rounds of the body. Please follow the chart to complete it. Note that after the last round of slip stitches, do not pull too tight, but enlarge the loop. Leave a 10 cm tail and fasten off. Now make an invisible fasten off here. Thread the needle. Insert under the second stitch from the entry point of the slip stitch. You can go from the back to front. And back into the braid where the tail is. Adjust it. This way, there are no visible slip stitch traces on the surface. The texture looks neater. Secure the tail end neatly on the right side with clear texture. Do the same for the starting tail. That concludes the base. Next, put the eyeball on. First, grab your glue stick. Insert the glue gun. Plug in the power. Turn the switch on. Wait for the glue gun to heat up. Then take out the base. Place it with the wrong side up. Glue the eyeball onto the center of the chain ring. Do not apply too much glue to avoid spoiling the appearance. Make it quickly and accurately. Press to secure. The position of the eyeball can be adjusted if you like. One eye is now assembled. After all eyes are assembled, glue the right sides of bases on flanks of the beak. Align the lower edge of the bases with the gap of the beak. Leave a space of about 1 cm between the bases. Once the position is confirmed, apply glue evenly on the right sides. And glue them in place. It won't be difficult for you. That concludes the eyes. Lastly, work on the blushes. There are 2 of them. They are all started by a chain ring and worked back and forth. The crochet technique is similar to the beak. Follow the chart to complete it. Look. This is what the finished blush sample looks like. Consider the side with the clearer texture as the right side. Weave in all tails on the wrong side. It won't be difficult for you. When the 2 blushes are ready, with their right sides facing up, glue them on flanks of the eyes and a bit below. Place the ends with the tail pointing outward, and the sharper ends aligned to the lower edge of the base. Feel free to adjust the position if you like. The gluing won't be difficult for you. That concludes the blushes. And we've also covered the facial features. Next, let's make the hat. Take a look at the finished project. The hat consists of the base, the cockscomb, and wood pile. First, let's work on the base. We will start by a magic ring and crochet in joined rounds. We'll change colors during the process. Once done, make slip stitches as decoration. The new stitch technique here is FV for DC 2-in-1. I'll show you in detail. Start with an adjustable magic ring. Then chain 3. Work the corresponding number of double crochets into the magic ring. And close the ring. Pull hard to tighten. The starting tail can be hidden on the right side with clearer texture. Finish by slip stitching into the beginning chain. Round 1 is complete. Continue with round 2. Start with 3 chains. Work 1 double crochet into the beginning chain below. Then, 1 DC2 in 1 in the next stitch, meaning to work 2 double crochets in the same spot. DC2 in 1 is done. Continue to work more DC2 in 1 for this round. And finish with a slip stitch. Round 2 is finished. For rounds 3 to 7, follow the chart for the corresponding stitches, as the tension varies between people. We need to compare the size of base to the body. With its wrong side facing out, try to match the curve at the top of the body closely. A slight gap is fine, but we don't want any big gaps. Finish the base with a proper tension. Finally, for round 8, chain 1 and 1 single crochet into the beginning chain below. Then, work single crochets evenly into the following stitches. End with a slip stitch. Fasten off the yarn. And weave in the 2 tails on the right side. It won't be difficult for you. Round 8 is done. Next, round 9. Take up the corresponding yarn. Hold the fabric with the wrong side facing up. Insert the front loop of any stitch from the last round. Draw the yarn through. Joining completed. Now slip stitches evenly into the following front loops. Do not tighten them up. Skip the slip stitch from last round. If your crocheting tension are tight, you can enlarge the loop a bit as you go. After the last stitch, enlarge the loop. Leave a 70 cm tail and cut the yarn. Thread the needle. Go under the braid of slip stitch. Then go back to where the tail is. Adjust it a bit. Weave in the short tail along the texture on right side. And leave out the longer tail for now, and that completes round 9. Next, we'll make slip stitches as decoration. Take up the yarn for the last round. Hold the fabric with the right side facing up. Now, work some slip stitches into the rounds except the last 2 rounds. For slip stitches of each round, divide them into small segments. The further out you go, the more segments you can have for a round. Each segment can be a random length. Let's work on a random round. Join the yarn. And start working slip stitches. Don't tighten the yarn too much. The tension for the slip stitches can be adjusted as needed. Pull tighter for the slip stitches on those loosened section of base, compared to the body. That makes the base match the body better. Adjust accordingly as you go. Once you're satisfied with the length, cut the yarn. Enlarge the loop. Hook the starting tail to the right side. Weave them in along the texture. Do not show any traces on the wrong side. It won't be difficult for you. Join the yarn and crochet a segment of slip stitches after skipping a few stitches. You can choose the number of stitches skipped. Cut the yarn when the segment is long enough. And weave in the tail on the right side. When crocheting slip stitches for the next round, the skipped stitches from the 2 adjacent rounds should be staggered. Flip it over, and take a look. On the wrong side, you'll see irregular segments, resembling the grain of wood. Follow this method. Except the last 2 rounds, work slip stitch segments for all rounds on the base as decorations. That concludes the wooden grain. And the base as well. Next, we'll make the coxcomb. Let's look at the finished project. The coxcomb is divided into section 1, 2, and 3. The first 2 sections are started by a magic ring and crocheted in spirals round counterclockwise. After that, combine them and crochet section 3. Finally, stuff the comb. I'll show you in detail. First, section 1. Start with a magic ring and crochet round 1. Chain 1, which doesn't count as a stitch. Now, 6 single crochets into the magic ring. Place a stitch marker on the first single crochet. Close the ring after finishing. Since we're crocheting in spirals round, just follow the chart to work the corresponding stitches for each round. And that you have round 1 completed. Continue with round 2. Work 1 SC2 in 1 for each of the following stitches. Weave in the starting tail as you go. Remember to move the stitch marker to the first stitch of this round. For every following round, always mark the first stitch. This helps locate the starting position. The last SC2 in 1 should be worked in the stitch before the marker. For every following round, finish by working into the stitch just before the marker. And that completes round 2. When crocheting in spirals round, it's normal if a height difference happen between the beginning and the end for a round. For the following rounds, keep crocheting in a spirals. Be sure to mark the first stitch of each round. When counting rounds, skip the starting point and count the raised texture like this. After the last round, leave a 15 cm tail before cutting the yarn. Any remaining starting tails can be trimmed. That completes section 1. Moving on to section 2. The technique is similar to section 1. Again, work with the right side facing out, and follow the chart. Do not cut the yarn after finishing the last round. As you can see, this is the sample after section 2. Now, move on to section 3. Continue with the same yarn as before. Work a round of single crochets on section 2. Don't forget to mark the first stitch. After that, take out section 1. Starting from the first stitch of the last round, work single crochets evenly. Once done, round 1 is completed. Leave the reserved tail on the outside for now. For the following rounds, continue to crochet in spirals. Don't forget to mark the first stitch. It won't be difficult for you. After the last round of single crochets, slip stitch into the next stitch. Then, leave a 20 cm tail before cutting the yarn. Tighten up. Now, stuff the comb a little. If there's a noticeable hole at the seam, sew a few stitches to secure. Weave in the tail neatly. And the cockscomb is finished. Next, let's make the pile. Let's take a look at the finished project. The pile consists of the base, the trunk, and the leaf. I'll show you in detail. For the base, we'll start by a magic ring and work counterclockwise in joined rounds. Follow the chart to complete it. At the end, leave a 30 cm tail before cutting. Tidy up the starting tail on the wrong side. It won't be difficult for you. Take a look. This is the sample after completing the base. Next, let's make the trunk. We'll also start by a magic ring and work counterclockwise in joined rounds. I'll show you in detail. The chart says, make a chain ring of 10 chains. This means chain 10 first, then slip stitch into the first chain to forms a ring. Now, chain 10. Mark the strand on the right of the first chain. And the strand on the right of the last one. Slip stitch into the first chain. Do not twist the chains here. You may fold the chains in half. Hold it with all the braid texture facing you into the marked spot for the first chain. And slip stitch. Pull it tight. Check again once it's done. We don't want the chains to be twisted. We want a flat circle. This is how we make a chain ring. Then work round 1. Chain 1 as a beginning chain. Work a single crochet in the marked spot below. Then pick up the back loops of the chains. To work single crochets evenly, finish with a slip stitch. And that completes round 1. Turn the right side with clearer texture outwards. For the next 2 rounds, continue crocheting in rounds. Follow the chart to complete them. Leave a 20 cm tail before cutting the yarn. That concludes the trunk. Next, we'll make the leaf. Let's look at the finished project. The leaf, it started with a magic ring and crocheted in rounds. I'll show you in detail. Start with an adjustable magic ring. And 6 chains. Starting from the second chain from the hook. Make 1 single crochet, 1 half double crochet, 1 double crochet, 1 half double crochet, and 1 single crochet. Then slip stitch into the magic ring. Slightly tighten it. Continue by 7 chains. Start from the second chain from the hook, work correspondingly. And slip stitch into the ring. Leave a 20 cm tail before cutting the yarn. Close the ring. Consider the side with clearer texture as the right side. The leaf is done. Thread the reserved tail of the base onto the needle. With the right side facing out, hold the trunk with its starting tail facing up. And put the starting tail inside. Whip stitches into the back loops of stitches from last round of the base. Sew the base to the foundation chains of the trunk. Adjust the position to keep the base centered as you sew. When finished, knot and weave in the tail. Next, take up the leaf. Thread the needle with its right side up and the tip pointing the center of base. Sew a few stitches to secure it in place. After that, tie off. And weave in the tail along the texture. It won't be difficult for you. The leaf is now done. The pile is also assembled. Finally, let's assemble the hat. Here I'll work on this sample. Thread the tail of comb onto the needle. Sew it to the wrong side of the hat base, at the center of the first round. Here for the section 2. Which is the smaller side. Align it with the slip stitches. Pull the yarn tight. Once done, tie off and weave in the tails. It won't be difficult for you. Next, take up the pile. Position it to the right of the cockscomb. And sew it onto round 4 to 6 of the hat base. Place the leaf behind. Feel free to arrange the pieces as you like. If you want the pile to look better, stuff it a bit more. Do not pull too hard when sewing. We don't want the fabric to shrink. When finished, tie off and weave in the tails as usual. You'll get it done. Lastly, thread the reserved tail of the hat base onto the needle. Position the larger side of the cockscomb towards the center of facial features. Here, I'll work on this sample. Put the hat on the body. Stretch it downwards. Make sure it stay close to the body. Pick up the braids of the slip stitches from this round. Sew the hat onto the body. Do not make the sewing stitches too close. Try not to show too many sewing traces. And make the stitches in the same round. Once done, tie off and weave in the tails. It won't be difficult for you. And the hat is complete. Lastly, we'll make the tail. Let's take a look at the finished project. The tail is made of the grain piece and the pile. The technique for the grain fabric is similar to the hat base. Leave a 60 cm tail at the end for sewing. The decorative slip stitches are also the same. The pile here is made in the same way as the hats. Once everything is done, sew the pile to the wrong side of the grain piece, slightly off-center from the starting point. Then, sew the grain piece to the body at the center back. Around round 11 to 17. Place the pile on top. Stretch the grain piece flat as you sew. The sewing technique is the same as before. All you need has been demonstrated. Please refer to the finished project and finish the tail. That's all for the tail. Now, let's create the wooden grain. Take the yarn for the segment of hat base. The color for the sample is random. Make the piece of yarn slightly longer. Thread the needle, fold in half, and tie a knot at the end. Insert the body from any point. Pull the knot inside. Then, secure the yarn on the body. Go between the strands of it. Do not show any traces on the surface. Go under the strands. Once secured, embroider some vertical lines on the body, each about 3 centimeters long. Make the lines straight. Staggered with some space. And stay close to the fabric. This create the wooden grain. You may arrange the lines as you like. Feel free to make your own choice. And the lines aren't needed for the part below facial features. Once done, secure the tail by going through the fabric a few times. Now finish the wooden grain embroidery. And that's all for it. Up to this point, we've covered the entire pillow. If you have any questions during the process, don't hesitate to reach us via the website. Susan's Family, supporting your handwork experience, sharing the joy of life. Thank you for watching. See you in next episode.